All right, so this is a presentation, or I guess I'd say like a series of insights that have been coming in for a while over the last couple years. And over the last month or so, I got the guidance to kind of like codify it and share it. And yeah, I'm so excited that we're doing it today, which is a really special day with the solar eclipse, which is actually coming in hot in an hour and a half. Um, and yeah, it was very clear. There are 8 themes that I really wanted to codify for you all. And as I was working on capturing them, I realized how connected they are to this time and the energy of Leo and some of the lessons we're learning. So since we're a more intimate group, well, I always intended for this to be interactive, but since we are a more intimate group, feel free to a- be vocal, ask questions. Before we get started, maybe pop in the chat. Um, we want to pop in the chat. Maybe your favorite star sign in the zodiac, and also where you're from, like where you're tuning in from. I think we're kind of split West Coast, East Coast. Mm. Oh, and I'm seeing someone can't get in. One sec. Let me. Just want to, sorry, make sure. I think someone's having a hard time getting in. Give me a second. First participant. Okay, I just hope they'll figure it out. Okay, so we got New York, Brooklyn. We got a couple Brooklyns in the house, actually. Oh, okay, Libra. Love that. All right, so I sometimes say that I have a love-hate relationship with presentations. I used to do a lot of decks and presentations, and I'm not in that era anymore, but I do find it helpful to guide the conversation. All right, are you guys seeing my screen? Can someone give me a thumbs up? I guess, Jake, you're the... Okay, great. And let's go into full screen. So yeah, several years ago I trained, I'll share a little bit about why I'm doing this. Okay, here we go. So I shared a little bit of background on how this was coming through and why I'm doing it. And it's kind of a provocative title, Unfuck Your Brain Meets Sacred Embodiment. But I really think over the last few years of swimming in the intelligence of the cosmos and this other way of seeing things and connecting with energy, there is an element of deconditioning and unfucking your brain to really accept part of the setup of life on this planet, especially as we're in times that are becoming increasingly louder and more chaotic, and our energy and our attention can be more and more fragmented. It's really important to call that energy back. So that's where the unfuck your brain comes from. And I kind of feel for the eight things, the first half are a little bit more unfuck your brain. The second half are a little bit more really sacred embodiment. And just background for anyone who's like new to this space or new to what I'm up to. I like to say that I've lived multiple lives in this lifetime, and I used to have a life that was really weighted in the systems of our time. So going to a great business school, having a career as an executive, sort of reaching the top of the mountain at NBC Universal for many years. And I don't think if I hadn't reached those milestones, I'd have the courage or impetus to walk away and search for true power and truth, actually, in general. And so, the shorthand of how I describe or explain part of my journey is this journey from self-awareness into soul awareness. Um, and here I captured some of the fields that influence my work. A lot of what I'm sharing today is really guided, and as I said, has come through in a lot of private readings, in group readings, in mastery work, master classes, stuff like that. Okay. By the way, like totally cool if you guys want to stay off video. And I definitely get more energy and excitement and animated when people are present. So whether that's video, off video, interactive, I prefer interactive. I don't think anybody really likes to broadcast into space. So if you have questions, if you yeah, just like anything you're willing to share will only enhance the conversation and the experience, I'll say. So we're going to dive right into the eight lessons, and then I'll talk a little bit about today, the astrology of this summer, and also the solar eclipse, which is happening at half an hour after we get off. So the first awareness that's come in is this idea that every single day we get a brand new sky. And I remember the time or the moment when it dawned on me a few years ago. I used to hold gatherings for women in LA for a couple of years with a friend, and we'd honor the moon. And in the Jewish tradition, there's a deep, deep, deep tradition amongst both men and women, but especially women, of honoring the new moon. And so when you get into the habit of marking time, especially the moons, you follow the 12 or sometimes 13 new moons a year. But when you get deeper into the study of the cosmos and the skies and how that affects down here, you realize that no new moon or no full moon is actually the same because the sky is completely different. So for me, I'm a Leo baby. I just had my birthday this week, and I was born right after a full moon during Leo season. So the full moon was in Aquarius. For people who follow, my moon is just after Aquarius and Pisces. There will never be that exact sky again, and every day will never, ever, ever, ever be replicated. And what that brings to mind for me is really a couple things. One is, I believe there's like a Native American saying or lore that this idea that every day we get a brand new sun, and when it sets, it's gone. And we get a new sun and a new sun and a new sun. Like the lifetime of the sun is one day. And there's actually a truth in that. The way the cosmos work is not about a single body or heavenly body. The name of this masterclass is Heavenly Bodies because that's the word we use to refer to the planets and the luminaries. They're all heavenly bodies, right? The sun and the moon are luminaries, they're not planets. And so it's never about one heavenly body, it's about the cosmos and how the interplay between them. And so every day we have a brand new sun, we have a brand new moon, and we have a brand new sky. And there's something really sacred about that that we can bring back down into how we experience life. I'm going to build on that a little bit. The other piece to this that's a little bit more cosmic consciousness is that if you actually look into the mechanics of what's happening with the sun and the moon, we know that information travels through light. And when the sun every day is in a different part of the sky, we're receiving a different consciousness or different information or different deposits, whatever you describe that. And so that awareness came to me a few years ago as well. And just realizing that actually getting some sunlight every day is more about a linear measure of vitamin D. It's really about exposing yourself to what's available every day. So the second one, and again, they're all connected, especially the first few and the last few, is that our galaxy form is a spiral. And I played around with different ways of capturing this. And as you can see, we have the version on a tree. There's also the version on our fingerprints, right? The snail, the galaxy, the Milky Way, many galaxies are spiral in form. And what I wanted to say here is that there's something about the nature of this galaxy or the nature of life on Earth that spirals. That's the wisdom we get from the trees. And a few points to make within this download is that there's a difference between a circle and a spiral. And I'm going to get into this in 3 and possibly 4 a little bit. It's important that we discern between a circle and going in circles and spiraling because it's funny that spiraling is such a negative term in our culture, but there is a need to see things from all perspectives and go in a circle and build on what we've seen and what we've done. And the deeper teaching here that we can go into if people want to hear more about it, that I've learned from astrology, is that there is divine timing. When we look at this cosmos, when we look at today's stars or planets, when we look at each of our birth charts, we're looking at it in a wheel, so in a circle shape. And there is divine timing, and you can look at how the heavenly bodies or the planets move around, what they're activating in your blueprint, in your personal constellation, in your chart, and see how sometimes you have to wait till the 7th year or the 70th year or whatever it is for that moment to happen. And yeah, divine timing is something I've been on a journey with for a long time. But it does feel connected to this spiral and this like natural rhythmic movement um, in nature and life. So this one maybe requires a little bit more understanding of astrology. A lot of this is packaged in a way that you can be a total beginner and receive. And this is about retrogrades. And something I didn't mention is that most of the images in this presentation actually come from NASA. This particular one and some more come from the Artemis 3 journey at the end of April. Many of these images of outer space have been taken in the last few years. There's one exception I'll let you know when we get there of Saturn that's a little older, but it was a pretty epic photo. And what am I showing you here? This is an image from the Artemis journey as they were, I believe, approaching the far side of the moon. And retrogrades in astrology is when, from the perspective of where we are on our planet, it looks like other planets are moving backwards. So, depending on the speed of another planet's orbit, it can look like they're going in reverse. We're pretty familiar in like pop culture, I'd say, with Mercury retrograde, but all the planets retrograde. And I got a download like a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago, the last year or two ago, that just like the planets retrograde, we retrograde. Okay. Sometimes we have to move backwards to move forwards. And when you combine this with this understanding of the spiral form or format on this planet, and even with the first, if you build on the first awareness, which is that every day is a brand new sky, you're never really going backwards. You may be revisiting something. So, like the common guidance on retrograde is you take the RE and all those words like reflect, return, reconsider. That's what the retrograde's about. We just had a big Mercury retrograde in Cancer, which I'll talk about when I talk about this summer's astrology and the invitations. When we get triggered or experience an old wound, something from our past, it's never exactly the same, just like it's never the same sky. Just like we're not going in a circle, even if it feels like we're going in a circle, it's a spiral. And so the lesson or the guidance here is that it is by design. It's part of being on this planet. And I was playing with this like, well, is it a vantage point? Is it just a vantage point? But I actually think it's more than a vantage point. I think it's part of the design for a reason. And yeah, I mean, these are all pretty deep themes. So if we want to, we'll have a good chunk of time for Q&A. But if we want to go deeper into it, we can. For me, this point number 3 about retrogrades is a big unfuck your brain. I know for me personally, if I experience a trigger, I'm back to the similar wound or a similar lesson. There's a part of me that feels like I'm regressing, that feels extremely frustrated, that feels like I haven't grown, or feels like I'm back in my small self. And there's like a deeper teaching here. I'll just touch on it. That part that just wants to be past it, or when I get over this, or when I no longer have that wound, or when I heal that wants to be healed, is actually causing us more suffering than the wound because it's the part of us that wants to separate from the wound or separate from the shadow. I often joke like we're not going to amputate. We're not going to amputate. We don't need to amputate. The wounds, right? The crack is where the light comes in. And so really noticing any like inner dialogue around it and really embracing the new sky every day. And it's never really truly the same, even if it feels like we're going backwards. This was one of my favorite images. NASA released it to celebrate the 250th birthday of America in red, white, and blue. I believe it's like a layered image with some infrared light of Cassiopeia. Okay, how fucking epic is our universe? Like, so fucking epic. I often like to say that the universe and the cosmos and the planets are more real than like 90% of what our brain thinks is real in day-to-day life. Like the stuff we give our energy and attention to. I don't mean to diminish it, but this is more real than like a job or a LinkedIn or a Facebook profile, whatever it is. So that's just like, oh wow. And this was really about, so when you look at again any snapshot of astrology, whether it's current transits, the planets today, which I have an example of for the eclipse, or individual birth charts, we look at it's all about sacred geometry, right? So many mystical traditions honor the role of numeric numbers and geometry, like in the Jewish tradition, the gematria. Sacred geometry, whether it's the Fibonacci sequence, the golden ratio, is how nature is made up and how the world works. And so, even when we tap into a tool like astrology, we're looking at the sacred geometry and the angles between the planets and the heavenly bodies to understand your chart. Now, those angles are called aspects. There will be harsher ones, which are called tensions and softer ones, which are called harmonies. Harmonies are triangular, like 120 degrees. Tension can be a square, like a 90-degree angle. And the point here, and this often comes up in private readings, but the general takeaway and the unfuck your brain of it is that they're both sacred. They're all sacred geometry. So we can throw our toys or we can be annoyed that we have harsh angles in our design. That's a perfectly natural response if you see an intense square or there's something called a grand cross or grand square and well, same thing. Or opposition in your chart, it can be hard. Like sometimes it can feel like a tough pill to swallow. Like I'll never forget one of the first readings I did was all harmonies. And actually, one of my primary mentor finds that boring because tensions or the 90 degrees where just like in creativity, you need friction or tension to create. And I'll never forget, I did this reading and it was almost all harmonies. And I said, like, is this landing? And she was like, yeah, it sounds like my life. She happened to be a very creative person. I'm not saying that one precludes the other. I'm just saying that you get exactly what you need, and there is an intelligence to the design on this planet and in your human experience in your life. So now we're switching into more of the sacred embodiment, let's say. And number five was also like actually it landed during one of these webinars I did last year, I think it was. And it's the fact that we're not at the center of the universe. We're not even at the center of our own galaxy. So we live in a solar system where we revolve around the sun. And the sun revolves around the center of the Milky Way. So our whole solar system is revolving around the center of the Milky Way. And I think it's very sobering, kind of like what we learn in school, right, about heliocentric or geocentric. And it puts us in our place, like this idea. There's something very famous called the observer effect when it's well documented when an astronaut goes to outer space, they just feel how special and sacred it is to live on this planet, this like blue marble, which we can see. This blue marble like suspended in space and how we're all connected, we're all one tribe. And it really is a shift in consciousness. That's partly why I tapped into these images. And so I think that there's like a humility, something humbling in that. But there's another piece to it. Even though we're not at the center of our universe or our galaxy, we live in a solar system. And I love that. I'll show you. It was just my birthday, and my nephew and my sister got me these sunflowers. Right? It's the sun. flower. I chose this image for a reason. It's the sunflower. It's a solar system. If you are familiar with the chakras, we all have an inner sun, the solar plexus. There's a lot of cool intelligence about this evolution that we're living through, this changing, the changing times, and really like bringing emotional intelligence online, whether you believe in cosmic consciousness or not, with AI accelerating, there's an opportunity to activate more of our human intelligence that's not just in the mind, not just the computer or the robot mind, but the emotional EQ, the emotional awareness. And so even though we're not the center of the Milky Way, we live in a solar system, and one of my favorite teachers, Richard Rudd, who's the creator of the Gene Keys, talks about this time as a solar plexus mutation where we're activating this part of us where it's actually a nerve ganglia where all the sensation, all the felt sense, the feelings exist, that new intelligence, like a new brain. And the same way we live in a solar system, our embodiment, our body, and our life is ordered in that way. And for people, anyone on the replay, I know some of the people who signed up have been to my Divine Union dinners in LA and Divine Masculine teachings. And really this divine masculine sort of ordering principle, the archetypal masculine of centering ourselves. And so I tried on also different ways to talk about this, but it's sort of like we are the center and we're not. So we are the center of our own universe, the universe, YOU, universe. And we're living in a massive, a massive space. Any questions? Pop them in the chat. Let's see. So this is one of my favorite ones. This is that image of Saturn. That's actually Saturn. Wild, right? And Saturn's rings. And as I said, we in astrology refer to these beings, like the luminaries and the planets, as heavenly bodies. But I don't know if it was a year ago or when, I got this download that we actually are heavenly bodies. We are heavenly bodies. And last year I started a podcast called Heaven on Earth. Heaven on Earth is something that many people and traditions reference. It's kind of this remembering of heaven being a place on earth. And I always associated it with flowers. For me, flowers and nature to an extent were this reminder, this Garden of Eden of heaven on earth. But recently, over as I've been like sitting with this idea, this download that we are heavenly bodies, I heard something somewhere, this idea of like what is heaven on earth, and that we are souls that came down into physical form on this planet. We are the heavenly brought down into the body. So we are walking expressions or embodiments of heaven on earth. And the reason I chose this picture, you can see there's like a satellite. I think it's called Juno orbiting Saturn. I think this was from 2017. Again, it's from NASA. I picked this picture with Saturn's rings because I did a really cool session with someone a week and a half ago who's a Kabbalistic intuitive and guide. And she was talking about the layers of the self and the aura. In Kabbalah, we talk about there's certain language for that. In other traditions, there's this idea of the physical body, the etheric body, the emotional body, the mental body, the Buddhic other planes. She said these are all elements or levels of your aura, kind of like Saturn has rings. So I thought that was cute that she was comparing us to Saturn, and I do think our aura is like comparable to the rings, but really owning the fact that we ourselves are heaven on earth, At any time, and I'll talk about this at the end, I do weekly meditations with people that connect them to their higher self, which I think this Leo season and this eclipse is about that. At any time, we can access heaven on earth through our felt sense and through our living embodiment, our presence, and our experience. All right, I'm gonna keep going. One more thing I'll add here is if you're familiar with this idea of like finding the sacred in the mundane, that's what I think this point or this awareness is all about. Like it's really this saying that I think many have heard that I know like really shifted something the first time I heard it, that we're not humans trying to have a spiritual experience. We're actually spirit here to have a human experience. I think it's both and, but it's an important reminder. Okay, so this is one of my favorite subjects, free will. I'm guessing we'll get into it in the Q&A. A dear friend of mine submitted a question about this free will. And in a way, it's why I study the stars and the cosmos, really to understand destiny and free will. And destiny is an important part of astrology, something called the lunar nodes. And actually, all the eclipses are connected to destiny. That's why eclipse seasons are so potent and special. Hey, Nelly. I'm realizing I also changed the time of this. I moved it up half an hour, so we might have some latecomers.
Hello everyone, sorry coming in late,
I
but I
know.
thought I'd just say hi.
Yeah, just join for whatever you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just seeing Jacob's message in the chat. Nelly, we just did number 6, which is about heaven on earth and the fact that we're heavenly bodies, and Jacob saying the world to come, which in Hebrew is Olam Haba, is often a euphemism for heaven, and it simply means tomorrow, literally the world to come. The future is heaven, the present is our stepping stone. We are constantly being born into heaven. Yeah. I definitely feel that, and I feel it's available in the present, and also every morning we wake up and we get that new sun. It's like a new opportunity for that. So we're getting into probably my favorite subject, which is free will and fate and destiny. There's a very famous quote from Carl Jung, and my training is in a Jungian style of astrology or Jungian method. Um, and the quote is that until we move the unconscious into the conscious, we'll keep experiencing fate and calling it destiny. And this idea that I'm rejiggering the quote. You can really only step out of fate or karma into your destiny when you bring consciousness to the unconscious. And now that we're in the second half of the 8 lessons, we're getting more into this sacred embodiment, but we're also, everything is connected. They're all kind of the same theme in a way. And a lot of this theme is about the shadow and the gift expression of stuff, specifically about free will and fate and the coexistence of them. Whether I wanted to or not, practicing astrology has forced me to really contemplate the idea of free will and fate and destiny. And it's actually helped me to evolve my concept of free will. I'll share my understanding of free will as it's evolved, knowing that it's a point in time and I think it'll continue to evolve. I'm not pretending that this is a complete understanding of it. I'm not sure I'll ever have a complete understanding of it while I'm on this planet in a body. But I actually believe free will is the truth that we always have choice. And so when I say that they coexist, we can still experience fate and fated events. And we still get to choose how we respond. And this connects to a deeper teaching, and I heard it articulated really well again by one of my favorite teachers, Richard Rudd, who created the Gene Keys, which is that freedom is actually not owning our time, like not having a job or having complete control over our time somehow. Freedom is the inner spaciousness so that we can respond instead of react. And I think that's what free will is really connected to. I think free will is part of the design of the human experience on this planet, but it doesn't mean what we've always imagined it to mean, which is that we're in control. It just means that we can choose how we respond. I have more reflections on fate, karma, and destiny. I think I want to save them for just the interactive Q&A and conversation. I will touch on that Jungian quote about the unconscious into the conscious and say that I do think when we increase our consciousness, when we're willing to look at things like patterns or shadow material, stuff that we've parked away in IFS, internal family systems, we'd call that like exiled parts. When we're willing to look at them, bring light into the dark, illuminate them, or have that witness present, it increases our ability to choose and have choice. I think many people would agree with that. One last thing I'll add here is that I think at some of the higher expressions of life, when I talk about going from the shadow into the gift, or in Gene Keys, he talks about the city, the exalted expression, or what we'd call like the higher self. At the level of the higher self, we have a merging of divine will and human will. I taught a whole course on this last year. It was called Mastering Your Destiny about, and actually a lot of people are talking about this now. I feel we're almost like graduating from ego-based manifestation into soul manifestation, soul connection. And the last one, number 8, yeah, as we go on, these are more deeply connected to Leo. And I struggled a lot with how to characterize this. But what you're looking at is another image from NASA of stars, and there's actually whole galaxies in this image, these oval shapes. This one here, possibly. There's a couple. So I struggled with what to call this. We came here for unique expression. Oh, Jason's here. Hmm. Hey, Jason. Welcome. You're catching us at the peak, which is number 8. We came here for unique expression. So we have this snowflake metaphor. There's an image of snowflakes at the bottom in pop culture or the zeitgeist, this idea that every snowflake is unique, and even this culture of feeling like I'm not going to get too into that, but the preciousness of everybody needing to be special. But I actually think the true code in humanity, and what I often talk about as this new era, whether we call it Olam Haba, like Mashiach consciousness, unity consciousness, abundance consciousness, fifth dimensional living on this planet, what I reference it as is the age of Aquarius Leo, which is why this eclipse today is so important, why this time we're in, these couple of years are really, really significant. And for me, that time, I can talk to you about it in the language and the archetypal symbolism of the zodiac, is Aquarius and Leo merging, and it is celebrating our unique light. So in a second, I'm going to transition into this time, the eclipse, the Leo energy, the astrology of the summer. But I'm not done making this point. The I believe, I believe a lot of life on this planet and spirituality is about paradox, transcending either or, transcending duality, getting to the both and, getting to the oneness in all there is. The paradox is that we can't get to systems that work for all until we're each able to express ourselves authentically. It's not even just about authentic expression. Everyone has a right to express themselves however they want. Until we create space or acceptance for the uniqueness of each person. So there's a few themes underlying this. One is one of my favorite quotes in the world, in the history of the world of what I've seen, which is also a Jewish spiritual leader, Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, who says, "The day you were born is the day that God decided the world couldn't exist without you in it." Okay? Let that sink in. A few months ago, someone booked a private session with me, a reading, and she was a triplet. Okay. I've done twins, now triplets. Just because someone has almost the exact, if not the exact same birth chart as you all have the freedom and the invitation to express differently. So what I'll say about that is whatever tool or modality we're using, a birth chart, human design, Kabbalah, Enneagram, whatever we're using, it's never one-dimensional. We are not using any of these to put you in a box. We're using them to encourage differentiation, to extract ourselves from the old paradigm where individuality meant something different. This is really about the Jungian psychology or awareness around what we're here for, to individuate. But it's actually a lot deeper than that. And I'm trying to figure out how I want to make this point. Back to the example of the triplets and reading someone's chart that's a triplet or a twin. Even when I asked all of you, what's your favorite sign? If you haven't dropped it in the chat, feel free to drop it in the chat. We kind of joke sometimes in this version of astrology, oh, I like Leo, I don't like Scorpio, said everyone, right? Or a lot of people. We have our biases. But the truth is that we're all made up of the same stuff. We're all made up of all of it. Every single wheel has every single sign. You experience that archetypal energy or an expression in some area of your chart. Okay, I have 4 planets in Leo. I have a lot of that lesson, that archetype, those qualities, those principles coming through me. And I'll use the example of Leo to say, not only are we made up of the same stuff, every single sign or archetype, whether it's masculine, feminine, whether it's a zodiac archetype, whatever it is, has a shadow, like an exiled part, a lower expression, and a higher expression, a gift expression, a light, a soulful expression. I actually think we're living through that for Leo. We're living through a huge part of this rebirth, Age of Aquarius, Leo, whatever you want to call it. Today, we're being born or reborn into the higher light, the higher expression of Leo. And I'll actually get into it in a second. I have a couple slides on this because it's a really important point. But I want that to land that even triplets can have different expressions. Even 1,000 people can be born in the same moment in the same place and live into the chart or live into that constellation, which is what it is, differently. And in every moment, every minute of time, we can change our expression. Just like in every moment when I get that trigger or whatever it is, where I feel like back to lesson 2 or 3, where I feel like I'm regressing, I'm going backwards, how it's different. It's not exactly the same as the wound that it's triggering. It may be bringing me back, bringing the past back up or bringing me back into the past, but it's a different, even if it's ever so slightly, it's a different circumstance. It's a different sky. And I have the opportunity or the option for a higher expression to bring more of my self or my light, my soul, my light, my radiance into how I respond. We're always getting do-overs. And guess what? When you pass the test and you do the do-over, it does heal something in the past. They say, yeah, it's a little cliche, but it does feel relevant. They say when you heal, you're healing 7 generations forward and 7 generations backward. I don't care about the number. I know that time and space are part of our reality, but there's actually when you leave gravity, when you leave Earth, there's a different concept of time and space. So I know that that's available. That's what we call the quantum field. I'm getting a little bit more advanced. This is meant to be a more simple, down to earth lesson. So I'm gonna just try and anchor this theme a little bit more before we shift into current astrology. I see Jason's favorite sign is free parking. Me too. Or Aquarius and Libra. I love that. You're the second Libra, or the second one to choose Libra. I know you're an Aquarius. So let's try and land this a little bit more. I actually, like a couple weeks ago, went to this beautiful concert, this circle, like a medicine circle with music. Some of you probably know him. He was in LA the week before, Nadav. I forget his last name. And it was reminding me of ecstatic dance. So I wonder who here has experienced that. I'll give you my example, which is ecstatic dance, but you can make it relevant for you. One of the reasons I love ecstatic dance, which I don't even know if I love it, but what I've received from it is that you go there and the whole point is that there's a DJ, there's headphones, everyone just expresses whatever feels good in the moment. It's not meant to be rhythmic, it's meant to be weird. You're just expressing, like it's a space to be weird and move your body however feels good. You're just doing that. It's a bunch of like amoebas just doing their thing, doing their thing. There's a moment or a minute, and you can probably see this in nature a lot more, but for humans, let's see this example. In the last 5 minutes, 10 minutes, where everyone's being weird, and then there's like a group field, a group force, a group mind that comes online and we're all moving as one and there's just energy. I felt it in the concert. There was one song, one moment. The whole concert was several hours. I went there for this one moment, this one song where everybody was just alive. There was no separation. We were all pouring into it and receiving from this field of energy. This is how I experience this, what we're shifting into. We can no longer feel separation. Whether we're looking at a family constellation, it's not a coincidence that for me, family constellations, that's what I just did with the horses. I've done it without horses, is my favorite thing in the world. I used to do this for companies or corporations. How lucky am I that two of the people who joined this call went to Harvard Business School with me? Like, okay, we've been studying management at the tops of organizations. I was doing this with them. Like, every organization, every family is a system, it's an organism. What someone's doing here affects what someone's doing there. And I really believe we can't graduate into this age of Aquarius, into systems that work for all, include all, elevate everyone until we can express our own uniqueness. And my best way of explaining that is this ecstatic dance. I'm sure you guys have other examples. If anyone wants to share another example, please do, because I think this is one of the holiest experiences. It's kind of like a flow state, but in a group organism. Concerts is like another one. Concerts isn't exactly it, but you can feel the energy or the field. Okay, Khanchi's, yeah, family constellations. It's incredible. And what's so beautiful about family constellations and achieving that state or connection with the field is that there's truth. It's It's like that Rumi quote, out beyond ideas of right and wrong, there's a field. I'll meet you there. It's actually a field, like the field in quantum mechanics. We often see that quote with a picture of a meadow, but there is a field where you transcend right and wrong, dark and light, and it's all light. It's just truth. You're no longer in the density and the shadow of this. Good, am I good or bad? Is it right or wrong? Is it me? Am I masculine or feminine? Men or women? You're no longer in that zero-sum consciousness. That's what transcendence feels like. And I think it's really a group experience because there's no longer separation. People are welcome to chime in or unmute yourselves. We're like a sweet, intimate group. There'll be many others on the replay, but for now, we're in presence. Speaking of the field, we're in the field. We're in presence together. Really, truly, some of my favorite people are here. And we're gonna we're gonna continue this conversation because we're getting into the astrology of the summer, the highest expression of Leo, and this eclipse today. But I'm gonna pause and like open it, officially welcome Nellie and Jason.
Hello. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't say concert because it felt too so close to ecstatic dance, but even in concert, you feel it. There's a moment where the entire crowd is beating like one and the rhythm of it. And it's kind of funny that you use the word paradox because, yeah, there is very much a paradox. We all expressing ourselves uniquely, but at some point, and maybe that's where Maxine, you can dig us a little more. It feels like there's one person that somehow influence the group and then the group can be in that field together, but yeah, there's I don't know if it's one person. Are we really moving all
Okay, I'm
together
gonna
or
tell you what I think it is. I think it's God. It's that God is expressing through each of us. And that part of the design on this planet is this like illusion of separation, separate identities, and that's part of what we came here for. But it's God, it's everything is God. Like I was gonna add a bonus number 9, but I didn't because it's not fully anchored, but I feel it's here because of your question. It's all God. It's like your parents that didn't weren't there in the way you needed them to be. It's God. The shadow, it's God. The gift is God. The shadow is the portal, the path to God. The darkness is the way into the light. And it may be one person influencing, but it's God. God speaking through that person and guiding them because you're in a flow state of a higher consciousness, God consciousness.
yeah, totally. But I love that you ended in like it's God talking through you and then you have the influence because to me it's almost like we don't know which one of us will have the influence to move the group until we express ourselves uniquely. So I love that responsibility of all of us to like express ourselves uniquely, but then because we'll be tapped in to be leading the group. And thankfully there's not always the same leader at all times. We switch. But yeah, there is this ownership at some point of moving the group forward.
I would even say, like when you say we don't know which one of us is it, all the blockages, all the fuck your brain, the part that's fucked is not God. Or maybe it is God, I don't know, but it's the true self, it's the true urge, the true expression, whatever is coming through is it's that energy, it's that light, it's that radiance it's usually in a radiant expression that's coming through.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
So I'm not in a place where I can, a public place. But I was at a Socratic method tent yesterday, for lack of a better word, where the facilitator wanted to have real conversations about hot topics. And I will say I did not feel oneness. I felt like the furthest away from oneness I've had in a while, just in the sense that there was a lot of debate that turned into people feeling uncomfortable or feeling, how shall I say, not heard, some words of, hey, that was condescending. And um, it just felt, the furthest away from ecstatic dance that you could be on the spectrum. And so, I left and it was a lot to hold. And so I called a friend to have a little bitch session or share. And I feel a lot better today, but you know, and your thoughts of oneness and achdut or unity or how to express our skills in the right way, all that seems amazing. But I would have felt closer to that end state before yesterday.
It's funny that you mentioned that example, Jason, because it really was like a week or two ago at this concert that I was like because I've been doing a lot of family constellations right now and feeling into like certain frustration after 8 years away. I came back and I'm kind of plunged into my family constellation. So a lot of frustration, whatever. And at some point, because I mentioned that two people, Jason and Jacob, went to business school with me at Harvard. At some point, I realized I felt that was part of the magic that we would sometimes experience in class with the most gifted teachers. Every single class there is in the Socratic method, where there is a kind of hive mind, and the most gifted teacher, like any facilitator, is bringing out it's all God, right? Like we're all contributing, but it's bringing it together. And so I actually think the mechanics of what's happening with ecstatic dance or a concert or that are, in a way, it's like harmonics, it's resonance, it's musical. There's like some wisdom in music that can get us there about resonance. But I don't have a formula for it. That's not what I'm here for. I'm here for that lesson of what we came here for. And I struggled with what to label this because I was like, oh, said the Leo, because Leo is so much about self-expression, authenticity, sharing your light. But I actually believe that that's what these times are about. And I was going to say that graduating into these systems, I'll tell you what these systems are not, the density and the duality of the past, where it was socialism or capitalism, whether it was free markets or communism. Okay, it's not that. That's a false binary. This idea that we can't have systems, I don't want to get political about it, but we're graduating into more of a transcendent, what I would call like fifth dimensional living or consciousness. But we used to think in the West, which is so individual, that it's individual at the cost of family system community. And we're actually accessing something more. And I think it does take, and I don't, this doesn't answer your thing personally, Jason, and I'm sorry you had to experience that because we do live in very polarized times. But I think it does take this solar plexus awareness, this emotional EQ awareness, this felt sense, this energy. And sorry, one more thing I want to add. I don't mean to apologize, but I'm conscious of time, so I want to move us along. But one more thing I do want to add is that's why, and this is another thing that download that came in, that's why God is such a huge part of this experience on this planet, because God literally is not giving us proof or a report card or something to point to. It literally requires blind faith and a felt sense. And we can't get here. We can't get to that moment, that flow state, that consciousness, that oneness without being able to embody that blind faith and felt sense. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be open. I'm gonna drop a few more nuggets in. This slide is about this summer's astrology, which we don't have to go too far into. I'll share like one coherent thread on it. But the astrology has kind of been popping off, or more accurately, the social sphere has been popping off about the astrology because it's been some pretty epic astrology in July and August. I'm gonna name what you've been hearing about, and then I'm gonna share my transmission on it. What you've been hearing about is this Barbeau's basket in July, which has been really popular, which was basically a basket like harmonic connection between the three outermost planets, which affect the collective consciousness. For anyone who's been to my stuff before, I've given a few lectures on this of end of 2024 through April or July 2026, where these three outer planets have been dancing and now they reach this kind of peak expression in the basket with Jupiter joining for this moment, this like several days. And that was happening the last 10 days of July while the lunar nodes of destiny moved into Leo and Aquarius, which is a big deal. It's an 18-month curriculum we're participating in now, which is why the eclipse is in Leo. Destiny is connected to Leo and Aquarius for the next 18 months. And then we had this like kind of sweet Mercury retrograde in Cancer. So we had this like big, intense set of events during Cancer season when the sun's in Cancer. And that's what this visual is really about. You have the crab here, Cancer, and then you have the lion, Leo. These last few years, one of the reasons they've been so hard is that we've been in a rebirth that's been like a karmic purge, which means that these outer planets that shape the collective consciousness have all finished very long residencies in parts of the sky and constellations. And when they get to the 29th degree, the final degree, each sign has 30 degrees, they learn the toughest lessons of that sign to move into the beginning of a new sign. So that journey from 29 Cancer, 29 of any degree, if you look at your chart and you have placements at the 29th degree, you're here for mastery in that. I happen to have that couple places. A lot of people I do readings for do. This summer, there's a very sacred transition from the mastery, the completion of one sign, into the new of the next. And the timing of this Mercury retrograde in Cancer, this tender, sweet, emotional, sensitive sign, feminine sign, into Leo for me was we can have the light and the brightness of Leo and authentic expression without the willingness to really be with and master the inner self. The Cancer was in the crab, the sensitivity, the emotions, the ouchies, the wounds. It's not just the wounds. Cancer is so beautiful. It's this like inner child and inner nurturer. For me, it showed, and it's so beautiful because the Cancer is inner mother, inner nurture, inner child. Leo is so much about creativity, which is so deeply connected to the magical child. And the house of Cancer, the fourth house is home. The house of Leo, the fifth house is creativity, it's leadership, but it's also children and playfulness. And it's like we can't have the magical child and creativity and expression without tending to the wounded child. Actually, it's the wound that where the light comes in, right? It's the wound where the gold is mined. And so I felt that this summer was like, whoa, we're taking it back, back, back. This crazy Mercury retrograde in Cancer, all the ouchies, all the tears we didn't cry, all the emotional landscape. It wasn't just for a few weeks, it was building the capacity for that, which will continue. But it's that we can't just rush onto the stage into the light. It's that we have to honor that we the step before we get on stage, the step before we're in our authentic light is that hardest lessons of Cancer, of the most sensitive, of the home, of the family. Wow, I'm in that portal right now. I'm coming to you live from my parents' house, right? Like really confronting some stuff as in that same few weeks of Cancer, not only did we have this basket and this retrograde and this sun with the Mercury retrograde and then the nodes shifting into Leo and Aquarius, but we had Jupiter move into Leo. Jupiter went over that sacred 29th degree into the 0 degree. And for the whole next year, we have this 1 in 12 years, this Jupiter is doing a residency in Leo. It's the planet that makes everything bigger, expands everything, is expanding our light. Okay, this all happened in the last 10 days of July, leading into this eclipse. I have a joke before I talk about the eclipse. Has anyone here seen the new Moana movie or seen Moana before? No, okay. I had a friend sign up who had seen it. You did? This Leo season, this year that we're all in Leo school, we're all in Leo school on this planet for the next year. We're all in the school of owning and expressing our unique light. It ties so into this idea of each sign having a shadow expression and a higher self, soul, light expression. Leo is the perfect example. The shadow expression of Leo is just shiny stuff, designer handbags, gold jewelry, nice car, looking really shiny, but we don't know that there's any substance there. The highest expression of Leo is shining that diamond crystal in your body, that light, your inner radiance, your unique snowflake stardust radiance to the world, sharing your light, your radiance. Not because you want to be the center of attention or not because you need or want the spotlight, because God made you in your unique way. Because God wants you to shine your light into the world and share your gifts with the world. It's not because it's really a lot of what you're hearing on social media is this attention all of a sudden that Leo is the only sign of the 12 signs that's ruled by the sun, which is true. It's very connected to the sun, shining, light, gold, the solar principle, almost this masculine solar energy. Earlier in the talk, I shouted out the divine masculine dinner, this centering ourselves. A couple of you guys were there, shining our light. So my joke is that this isn't Moana reference, when we look at this like highest expression in the summer in Cancer and Leo, like I just thought it was so funny that there's a character in Moana that's a shiny crab that's covered in anything shiny from the ocean, all the gold, all the glitter. Okay, so we are merging Cancer, the crab, sensitivity, wounded child, magical child. We're getting harmony there. It doesn't look like this, but it's something else. And bringing it home to the eclipse, it's powerful. I'm not a big fan of eclipses. I definitely can feel some discomfort around eclipse season because I really believe it's about destiny. That's what it is. Eclipses happen because the orbit of the moon around the earth and the earth around the sun line up in such a way that the earth blocks the light and the moon blocks the light. And it's really about these lunar nodes, these points on those orbits of destiny. We each have them in our chart. We have collective lunar nodes of destiny. And the eclipse covers the light. A lot of people and astrologers talk about eclipse season as a time of surrender, where it's like the hand of God, right? Earlier, we talked about fate and destiny. It's the hand of God coming in, and you really don't want to interfere because there's some correction happening, some alignment happening. And I feel it's funny, I was supposed to go on a trip to see the totality of the eclipse a couple of years ago, and I had this huge I was floored literally with vertigo. I couldn't get up to go to the airport and my trip was canceled and I almost felt like I wasn't supposed to see the totality. And this particular eclipse, because it's in Leo, and I already expressed a lot of the themes of that, of what the school the next year is about owning our light and claiming our light and claiming that we are the light, that we have God within, that we have the divine spark within. We come from the light. It's not about light versus dark anymore. It's about the dark. It's about what I was saying earlier. You can't point to it, but you can feel it. It's about darkness is just the absence of the light, and darkness is just where the light comes from. It's this oneness. And I feel today this solar eclipse is really about even when you can't see the light, even when you can't see God, even when you're in the darkest time, the trigger, you're back in the wounds, you're back in whatever it is, can you have that inner knowing? Can you claim that you come from the light? It's not in the brightest moment that people need your light. It's in the darkest time, the darkest moment. And so I really feel like that's what today is about. It's about in the darkness, claiming the light, being the light. There are bigger themes around sovereignty, or stepping into our nobility, wearing our crown. Um, yeah. And one more thing, it's like, yeah, I named like the singularity of the light, right? There's a duality, but then there's a singularity. And one more thing is that actually the way life works here is that there can be a lot of inversion. The same way that in the systems that haven't worked, we've kind of made the feminine wrong or called the feminine weak. Actually, the feminine is one of the most strongest forces on this planet. So it's very natural. It's part of that paradox to have an inversion. And how the inversion applies to this is that we feel like we're the darkness, or we feel we've been told that we're wrong, we're bad. Whatever happened in Jason's Socratic gathering, whatever happens online, the fighting, the polarity, the pointing fingers, but we're all the light. We come from the you wouldn't be in that's why a corpse doesn't have light anymore. You wouldn't be a body if you weren't carrying light. Okay, I'm done. Yeah, I'm done. I'm done sharing whatever wanted to come through. It's open season, time for Q&A. I'm gonna check the chat. Let's enjoy. See beauty where I don't want to see it. Wow. Wow. Jacob, an important theme is concealment and revelation, right? It's all God, but there is concealment. Yeah, shadow, difficulty, pain, separation. It's amazing how space creates opportunity for return, for joining. The hard work is managing in this environment. Do we reveal too much on social media? Do we consume too much? What would be better concealed? What is hidden that should be revealed? What signal is drowned out by the noise? Yeah, I agree completely. Open for shares, questions.
I think maybe I want to point to something that you said. You said just one sentence about it, but that was part of the voice message I sent you. You see, the Jupiter. Like, it's just my social media was blowing up with felt like a lot of pressure to perform because it was like, this year you're gonna expand, everything you're gonna do is gonna go so big, and anything you're gonna ask is gonna come tenfold, and your wealth and your health and your prosperity. And I sent you a message. I was like, why do I feel so much pressure? What if I don't make it the way that the other Leos make it? So I feel a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
And I think the word this, and I didn't understand where it was coming from, but then you said Jupiter is moving into that. So maybe that's what this is what they were trying to describe.
Yeah, I actually have had a lot, like one person in particular, but people say that to me too. Like you have all this Leo, it's gonna be everything's gonna change. It's gonna be this year is your moment. And it's kind of like right now, this is my moment right now. That's part of the unfuck your brain. And something I really had to sit with astrology, where when we focus on an event in the future, we're giving away our power to something that hasn't happened yet. Or when yeah, anything outside of us, that's why we did the whole unfuck your brain portion, because it's here right now. there may be peak experiences like the last 5 minutes of a concert or ecstatic dance, but it's all God. I don't know. It's yeah, kind of what Jake was saying about the concealment and the light. And and it's kind of like part of why what I focus on right now is honestly these weekly meditations I lead where I'm just holding space for people to connect with their light, with their higher self, is that the mastery isn't about like learning what's going to happen in 6 months. The mastery isn't about like bringing an old attitude to like trying to be someone or make something of yourself. This during a transit, it's about in this moment, can I tune in? Can I connect? Can I be inside myself? Can I be with myself? I don't know. Can I access my light? Maybe is what it is. Can I access my light in this moment, which you're so good at? Jason, I had in mind that you asked that question about fate and free will, and
Mm.
I touched on it a little bit back here. But I'm open to if you wanted to ask about it or oh, you said yeah.
No, I really, you know, after the Socratic method tent, I felt, it, and this is probably the wrong way of thinking about it, but I felt comfortable in the duality. I'm like, oh, wow, it's really nice that it's really nice, we're trying to bridge this polarity, but at times, like we are a tribal species, and we do naturally group in ways that bring us peace of mind. And so often I'm in my own tribe, if you will. And, I wonder if unity is potentially an aspiration that is, or maybe the way I'm thinking about unity is an aspiration that's too far reaching after obviously experiencing some of these like very strong polar opinions. Because yes, I can appreciate differences, but it did not. It was like, I understand why we're so polarized, and it. I didn't feel like it was bad at the while hearing other people's opinions. So the second thing I wanted to mention is misinformation, because that really, like, I don't mind arguing or debating or being on opposite sides of the of a spectrum, as long as we're talking about, as long as we're discussing things on a similar playing field. It's it's what gets people, I feel, into these negative spirals, is when we don't feel like we're being heard, or even more so, we feel that we're discussing we're discussing things based on information that is completely opposite. And I love how you put it, when you're like, it doesn't have to be one or the other. I think that really brings a lot of, as I thought, it really shined a lot of light and gave me a lot of peace hearing that. So thank you.
Yeah, I hear you. I also don't think it's wrong, the polarity. I think it's can feel painful. Sometimes it can feel comforting. Sometimes it's painful. I think it's part of life. Like I was
Mm.
even thinking the creation story is like how God, even the Havdalah prayer, it's like all about discernment and like light and dark. And um, I think it's a part of life. I just think we have to detach a little bit from that because there's so much baiting us into that war energy. For me, it's like war energy. And war is a part of life, I guess. I hear what you're saying about misinformation, and what that makes me think of is why I love family constellations and the field of like truth. I'm not sure that there is,
Hmm. Hmm.
I'm not sure that there is absolute truth or objective reality when there's polarity present. I think it's just relative truth and yeah, relative experiences.
Uh-huh.
Sounds like you're fighting the good fight by going to these things and these conversations. Um, yeah, ha
I
ha
appreciate it.
happy to continue the conversation anytime. I'm gonna, if there's nothing left that anyone wants to say.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to up also, but I think this is exactly what I felt when I said I don't want to see. I'm anxious to see beauty where I don't want to see it. This is exactly what I feel is connected to what Jason is experiencing. Like I also felt pulled into places that yeah were very triggering. I didn't feel comfortable. I felt polarized. And deep down, I was like, I know there's beauty here, but I don't want to see it because it's sparse on the opposite side of where I stand. And so I don't want to give them beauty or truth. But I felt that ambiguity that deep down I knew they also had truth and beauty. And it was hard to accept. I
Mm,
felt maybe it's connected to what Jason felt.
mm, beautiful. Thank you all for being here,
Definitely.
showing up. What a fun Wednesday.
Mm.
I have so much love for everyone.
And happy birthday in
Oh,
live.
thank you.